Hey guys, Lord Naren White here, the Holy Ghost, the one true God, back with you with the next video in my series reading Oliver Twist, as read by Lord Naren White. Without further ado, returning to Oliver Twist by Charles Dickens. There was a back garret window with rusty bars outside which had no shutter, and out of this Oliver often gazed with a melancholy face for hours together. But nothing was to be described from it but a confused and crowded mass of housetops, blackened chimneys and gable ends. Sometimes, indeed, a grisly head might be seen, peering over the parapet wall of a distant house, but it was quickly withdrawn again, and as the window of Oliver's observatory was nailed down, and dimmed with the rain and smoke of years, it was as much as he could do to make out the forms of the different objects beyond, without making any attempt to be seen or heard, which he had as much chance of being as if he had lived inside the ball of St. Paul's Cathedral. One afternoon, the Dodger and Master Bates being engaged out that evening, the first named young gentleman took it into his head to evince some anxiety regarding the decoration of his person. To do him justice, this was by no means an habitual weakness with him, and with this end and aim, he condescendingly commanded Oliver to assist him in his toilet straightway. Oliver was but too glad to make himself useful, too happy to have some faces, however bad, to look upon, too desirous to conciliate about him when he could honestly do so, to throw any objection in the way of this proposal. So he at once expressed his readiness, and, kneeling on the floor, while the Dodger sat upon the table so that he could take his foot in his laps, he applied himself to a process which Mr. Dawkins designated as japanning his trotter cases. The phrase rendered into plain English signifieth cleaning his boots. Whether it was the sense of freedom and independence which a rational animal may be supposed to feel when he sits on a table in an easy attitude smoking a pipe, swinging one leg carelessly to and fro, and having his boots cleaned all the time, without even the past trouble of having them taken off, or the prospective misery of putting them on, to disturb his reflections, or whether it was the goodness of tobacco that soothed the feelings of the Dodger, or the mildness of the beer that mollified his thoughts, was evidently tinctured, for the nonce, with the spice of romance and enthusiasm, foreign to his general nature, he looked down on Oliver, with a thoughtful countenance, for a brief space, and then, raising his head, and heaving a gentle sigh, said, half in abstraction, and half to Master Bates, "What a pity he isn't a prig!" "Ah," said Master Charles Bates, "he don't know what's good for him." The Dodger sighed again, and resumed his pipe, as did Charlie Bates. They both smoked for some seconds in silence. "I suppose you don't even know what a prig is," said the Dodger mournfully. I think I know that," replied Oliver, looking up. "It's, You're one, are you not?" inquired Oliver, checking himself. "I am," replied the Doger. "I'd scorn to be anything else." Mr. Dawkins gave his hat a ferocious cock after delivering this sentiment, and looked at Master Bates as if to denote that he would feel obliged by his saying anything to the contrary. "I am," repeated the Dodger. "So's Charlie, so's Fagin, so's Sykes, so's Nancy, so's Bet. So we all are, down to the dog, and he's the downiest one of the lot." "And the least given to preaching," added Charlie Bates. "He wouldn't so much as bark in a witness box, for fear of committing himself. No, not if You tied him up in one and left him there without victuals for a fortnight," said the Dodger. "Not a bit of it," observed Charlie. "He's a rum dog. Don't he look as fierce? Don't he look fierce at any strange cove that laughs or sings when he's in company?" pursued the Dodger. "Won't he growl at all when he hears a fiddle playing? And our don't he hate other dogs as ain't of his breed? Oh no. He's an out-and-out Christian," said Charlie. This was merely intended as a tribute to the animal's abilities, but it was an appropriate remark in another sense. If Master Bates had only known it, for there are a good many ladies and gentlemen claiming to be out-and-out Christians, between whom and Mr. Sykes's dog there exist strong and similar points of resemblance. "Well, well," said the Dodger, recurring to the point from which they had strayed, with the mindfulness of his profession which influenced all his proceedings. "This hasn't got anything to do with young Green here." "No more it has," said Charlie. "Why don't you put yourself together under Fagin, Oliver, and make your fortune out of hand?" added the Dodger with a grin. "And so be able to retire on your property and do the genteel, as I mean to, in the very next leap year but the 4 that ever comes. And the 42nd Tuesday in Trinity week," said Charlie Bates. I don't like it, rejoined Oliver timidly. "I wish they would let me go. I would rather go." "And Fagin would rather not," rejoined Charlie. Oliver knew this too well, but thinking it might be dangerous to express his feelings more openly, he only sighed and went on with his boot cleaning. "Go!" exclaimed the Dodger. "Why, where's your spirit? Don't you take any pride out of yourself? Would you go and be dependent on your friends?" "Oh, blow that!" said Master Bates, drawing 2 or 3 silk handkerchiefs from his pocket and tossing them into a cupboard. "That's too mean, that is." "I couldn't do it," said the Dodger, with an air of haughty disgust. "You can leave your friends, though," said Oliver, with a half-smile, "and let them be punished for what you did." "That," rejoined the Dodger, with a wave of his pipe, "that was all out of consideration for Fagin, because the traps know that we work together, and he might have got into trouble if we hadn't made our lucky. And that was the move, wasn't it, Charlie?" Master Bates nodded assent, and would have spoken, but the recollection of Oliver's flight came so suddenly upon him that the smoke he was inhaling got entangled with a laugh and went up into his head and down into his throat, and brought on a fit of coughing and stamping, about 5 minutes long. "Look here," said the Dodger, drawing forth a handful of shillings and halfpence. "Here's a jolly life. What's the odds where it comes from? Here, catch hold. There's plenty more where they were took from. You won't you? Oh, you precious flat." "It's naughty, ain't it, Oliver?" inquired Charlie Bates. "He'll come to be scragged, won't he?" "I don't know what that means," replied Oliver. "Something in this way, old fellow," said Charlie. As he said it, Master Bates caught up an end of his neckerchief, and holding it erect in the air and dropped his head on his shoulder and jerked curious through his teeth, thereby indicating by a lovely pantomimic representation that scragging and hanging were one and the same thing. "That's what it means," said Charlie. "Look how he stares, Jack." I never did see such prime company as that 'ere boy. He'll be the death of me. I know he will." Master Charlie Bates, having laughed heartily again, resumed his pipe with tears in his eyes. "We'll go ahead and stop there for this week. As usual, I want to say thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed. Please like, comment, and subscribe as it greatly helps the channel. Light be with you all. Take care and thanks again.